Oops. Apologies. I seem to have accidentally crashed Studio One. That was annoying. Let me try that again. Hang on. I have no idea what happened there. I haven't actually crashed Studio One, it's just the audio has stopped. Don't know what's going on there. Hang on. Good evening, everybody. We'll dispense with the intro because for some reason the audio has stopped. I don't know what's going on there. But I will have that sorted whilst I'm talking. So I hope everyone's alright and has had a good week and a good weekend so far. We are rushing headlong into Christmas. It is getting seriously close. And there's all sorts of craziness going on in the world as well at the moment, which is going to make Christmas 2021 have just a hint of deja vu, I suspect, for a lot of us. Certainly here in the UK, and if you are in Europe, you are probably already feeling the effects of the deja vu. If you've ever watched the films, the Matrix films, you'll kind of know what I'm alluding to, at least a little bit. But yeah, it's been a bit of a mental time for a lot of us, and it looks like it's going to get a little bit more crazy before potentially it could get better. I'm no virologist, I'm no epidemiologist, I'm not an expert, but I do a lot of reading of credible sources, and I do have friends who are in fact virologists. One of my friends who is a great tenor sax player is also a virologist. And so he and I talk quite a lot, and he tells me things that he knows. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird time for everybody, but we'll get through it. We got through it last time, and we'll get through it this time, and we'll get through it together. That's the key. We need to kind of be there for each other and support each other and care for each other. And by doing that, we'll get through it. So what you heard was about 6 seconds, I think, of my song Paper Deity from my 2016 EP Belonging to Tomorrow, which will be reissued shortly. In the new year, in fact, it is going to be reissued. It went kind of out of it was discontinued maybe about a year ago, mostly because the platform that I was hosting it on no longer exists. So I am going to be uploading it to Bandcamp, which is where all my other stuff is. There's a very old album of mine called Swings on Roundabouts, which is like 8 years old, I think, which is like one of the last things I did in Cubase before I switched over to Studio One. And that record took about 3 years to make because it was fraught with all sorts of technical problems with Cubase and with computers. I ended up burning through like 2 computers just to get that record made. And like some of the overdubs we ended up doing on a Mac, on a borrowed iMac on GarageBand. So yeah, it was fun. But so that record is up there on my Bandcamp. And as I said, the 2016 EP Belonging to Tomorrow will be going up there as well. My single from 2019, which was called Dig Myself a Hole. Thank you, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, for inspiring me to write that song. That is also up there as well. And just so you know, with the reissue of Belonging to Tomorrow over on Bandcamp, I will be putting up some new music as well. I have some new songs in the works, and it's going to be a different one this time because I think I'm mostly going to be playing everything on it because of COVID restrictions. It's going to be harder for me to record the people I need to record. So I'm probably going to be doing everything myself. I'm going to be a one-person rhythm section, a one-person backing vocals section, a one-person horn section. It should be fun. My band will have shrunk from a 15-piece band 20 years ago down to just me. So it's going to be interesting. But yes, there will be a new record coming out in 2022. How many songs it'll have, I'm not sure yet. From the songs that I have written so far in 2020 and 21, I probably need to whittle them down to kind of like the best songs and then start recording those. So basically, that's kind of the news here. Hope you guys are doing well and have had a good week and a good weekend. Let's get into it. Let's get into your questions. Seeing as we've kind of dispensed with the intro, we may as well just dive straight in. And maybe I'll play some music for you at the end as a kind of outro to the show. So who do we have here? And by the way, get your questions in now if you have them. If you have questions about Studio One, about music production, music theory, harmony, melody writing, lyric writing, any of those kind of questions, or just kind of like general stuff about Persona's gear, then get that into the chat now. Don't forget to put the @ before my name, so that my name for me shows up in red, so that I can distinguish you addressing a question to me from the general chat, and that way I don't miss any questions, because I hate it when I miss questions. However, that said, if I do miss a question, please do email me. If you go to, I was about to say, if you go to the website address below, but there's no link to it on this glorious little Christmas background. But if you go to JonnyLipshamStudios.co.uk, you can shoot me an email. So you need to email Jonny at JonnyLipshamStudios.co.uk, and I will try and answer your question either via a reply to your email, or we'll just make it the first thing we talk about the following week. Kind of up to you what you want to do. But yeah, I would love to get some really good questions in. So, Billy Morgan was the first one in, who says, "Hi y'all," and I've just suddenly realized my phone is not on silent. I am so well prepared for tonight. Today has been, let's just say today has been a little bit of a struggle, technically and technologically, because my keyboard, my computer keyboard, not these guys, my computer keyboard is on its last legs. Basically, the numlock key got stuck. And what that meant was, anytime I typed letters, they came out as numbers. So, a couple of reboots of the computer and then some tweezers underneath the numlock to kind of release the key seemed to fix it. But, yeah, that was this afternoon. Took me a good while to fix that. And I was kind of like, I've got a show to do tonight. I'm not going to be able to do it. And all of that. So, small, tiny little panic. And then I came up with a solution, which seemed to work quite well. So Billy Morgan was here first, followed by Mike over at Music to Motion, Rich Cress. I forgot to omit the T because I know I've done that a few times. Sorry, buddy. Rich Cresswell is here. Thomas over in the Philippines is here. Kyle Trajusiak is here. Dwayne is here as well. Billy Morgan is here. Don Oliver is also here. Music to Motion says, hanging in there like a hare in a big skit. That's hilarious. Just Bob is here. He says, may not be here for the whole show, waiting on a friend to get in touch with me. Okay, no problem, dude. No problem at all. He also says, I think we're stuck in a Groundhog Day. Yes, we are a little bit, I think. I just hope that we are all able to find as much humor in Groundhog Day as Bill Murray did in the film of that title. Especially when he was trying to, therefore, during the Groundhog Day, find imaginative ways to kill himself. Not that I'm advocating anybody killing themselves, I'm just advocating finding humor in a Groundhog Day kind of thing. But hopefully we will get all through it. Billy says, my life daily activities haven't changed at all. Yeah, I think that'd be the same for me too. You know, when they kind of said, you know, hey, we're going to issue a work from home mandate. I was just like, Okay then, I shall work from home. I've been working from home for 25 years. I don't think anything's going to change for me. Although the government did say, hey, because you're working from home, we'll give you extra money. And I was just like, I'll take it. Thank you. All right, so let's see. Who else do we have here? David Anthony is here. He says, Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas to you, David. Glad you are here. Ronald Figura is here. Dan Fogelberg, one-man band. Yeah, it will be something like that. Dwayne says, will you make your songs available on iTunes? Unlikely to make them available on iTunes. But yes, they are available on Bandcamp, and you can purchase them from Bandcamp. You can actually decide how much you want to pay for them over on Bandcamp. So, yeah, you can go and get them there. Just Bob says, when doing sidechaining, how do you identify which instrument or vocal needs to be ducked? I played around with it, and you can really mess up your mix. Yes, you can if you are not careful. You have to... The thing with sidechaining is you have to do it where it is required. Think about, hey, I'm in this mix, and every time the vocal is there, the obligato kind of starts fighting with the... when I say obligato, smart little musicology term that basically means counter melody played on another instrument. So let's say you have your vocal, but you also have like a trumpet or something. Whilst the singer is singing, the trumpet is also kind of playing a secondary melody line or an improvised melody line. And let's just say they're kind of fighting for each other a little bit. Now, you could just use automation. You could write that fader of that trumpet so that it's always out the way of the vocal. Or you could sidechain it. So every time the singer sings, the trumpet is being ducked by maybe a couple of dB. Not by a whole lot, but by a couple of dB, just being tapped down. So that, just the vocalist is just saying, hey, just, tame it down a little bit. And that's all you're really doing in most kind of pop, rock, kind of jazz kind of settings, really. However, if you're doing EDM, it's a whole nother game, because you can use that kind of pumping side effect of ridiculous over compression with a sidechain compressor to kind of create lots of deliberate intentional pumping effects, which can be really, really cool, that can actually make the bass drum, the kick drum, be nice and up front with everything else kind of being tapped or shoved, in the case of most EDM, shoved down and out of the way. So you get this cool creative pumping effect that gives this sense of tension and release that drives the music forward. So sidechaining in an EDM context is done for not just a compression effect to get things out of the way of the kick drum and make the kick drum kind of the main thing, because in EDM, a lot of the time, the kick drum is the main thing. It's the most important thing, because that's what keeps people on the dance floor. So, when that is the case, then, what am I trying to say here? When you're kind of just pushing things down out of the way to make sure the kick drum is the main thing, you can also use that pumping effect to create a rhythmic artifact, especially if you can use the release time to get the music to come back, or the keyboard part to come back exactly on the upbeats in time with the music. And that way you create this cool little rhythmic pumping effect. Not just a pumping effect that's created by heavy compression, but it's a rhythmically derived percussive effect. Now, there are some sidechain compressors where you actually, they actually receive the tempo information from the song, and it does all of that for you. You don't have to twiddle with the release time. But it's actually a good skill to acquire. actually to figure out exactly what the release time is, to get the pump to line up with the beat. That's an EDM context, but otherwise, for the most part, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to make sure that the vocal in a rock or a pop setting is always up front. Now, you can ride the vocal for sure and make sure that the vocal is always on the top using something like Vocal Rider, or just by automating the fader by yourself, or you could basically route all of your backing music to its own bus and then sidechain that bus to the vocals, so that basically you have a compressor on that bus for all of your background music, so that every time the singer sings, it's just tapping the backing down just a little bit so that it's not out of control. But you don't want to have too much separation, because like you said, you'll ruin your mix. So if everything is being tapped down too much, then the vocal is going to be too out front, and you'll get too much of a separation. What you want is enough so that the vocal is always on top, always clear, and that every syllable and every inflection and every nuance of the vocal can be clearly heard and articulated. And so that's where you would use some creative sidechain. So maybe you would do that to make sure the rhythm sections stay under control, but you would also use it maybe to allow, secondary counter melodies, obligatos, a solo just as the solo is starting to get going, as the vocal is finishing, and you're kind of transitioning between the vocal being up front and the solo instrument being up front. You can certainly either do that with fader rides, or you can do that with a little bit of creative sidechain compression. So that would be my thoughts on sidechaining. But like you said, Bob, if you can overdo it, and you can get too much separation, and also you can get the release time wrong, so it ends up not being particularly musical. So the idea in a pop context is for it to be smooth and subtle, so that you don't notice it, but all you do notice is that the vocal is nice and clear and in your face. So I hope that kind of helps. But that's a good question. Rich has a question. He says, how are you setting up the Nord in Studio One? The answer to that is it's just strictly as an audio instrument. It's just a line into the interface. Basically, that's it. There is no, I'm not using this to trigger anything. So it's not triggering any virtual instruments. It's just simply just audio by itself. So any settings I do on here, I have to get right, because they are being recorded straight to the track. So for example, if I'm using the Hammond organ, for example, so if I get any settings wrong on this when I'm recording with the drawbar settings here, which I'm not really sure you can see very clearly, but there are some digital drawbars here. And if I get those settings wrong, that's going to be printed to the track every time. So it's a case of I kind of need to experiment quite a bit when I'm using the Hammond organ, or if I'm using the synth section. Again, I have to do a lot of experimentation just kind of playing along with whatever track that I'm recording on, to see if I get those sounds right, before I hit record. Anything that's out of time or any wrong notes that I might play, I have to start over. I can't go in and kind of manually find that note and just drag it down like you can with MIDI. No, I can't do that. So MIDI is done by the Atom SQ, which is a little bit out of shot, and this guy here. Which has kind of a sort of Les Paul-y guitar sound on it in the moment. So yeah, MIDI is done here. Just analog audio is done here for my keyboards. And that takes care of most of my rhythm section stuff. So when I was talking earlier about kind of being a bit of a one-man band, for the most part, any MIDI stuff will be done with this guy, and keyboards will be done by this guy. So I hope that answers that question. It's a good one, though, because most people don't ask those kind of questions. Let's see. Mike from Peace Valley Audio is here, as is Alps Media. That's awesome. Let's see. Music to Motion says sidechain on reverb is a good thing on vocals. Yes! Bingo! Absolutely. And I use that all the time. I use it on reverbs, I use it on delays that I have for vocals. Because you want to get those kind of out of the way a little bit when the singer is singing, so that they don't kind of make things kind of sound indistinct. And then you can kind of use the release time of the compressor to allow the reverb tail and the delay tail to come through. And that works really, really well. I use that all the time. And it means I'm not having to play with kind of fancy, little delay or offsets or anything like that in a reverb or a delay. I don't have to think about that. The sidechain compressor ducks the reverb and then lets it back up so that you get the tail of it when the vocal is not singing. So that's a great use of sidechaining. For sure. Secret Squirrel is here. He says, do you ever designate multiple meter changes in your non-orchestral compositions? If so, how are you imagining the strategic emotional impacts? That's a good question. Yeah, I do sometimes make use of time signature changes in more of my my more fusion kind of sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. More of my kind of fusion stuff that I do, rather than, things like paper dating stuff from my 2016 EP. I don't really class that as fusion. It's kind of jazz-tinged pop songs, I suppose. But when I'm actually dealing with proper fusion, where I am integrating some different time signatures and that kind of thing, they have to be there for a reason. I mean, I know that there are some bands out there and there are some artists and composers out there for whom, it's like, it's not progressive. It doesn't, if it doesn't have at least one time signature change, or doesn't feature some odd meter somewhere in the piece to trip everybody up, to trip the listener up or anything like that. For me, that's not really enough of a reason to justify having a change of time signature. For me, if I'm changing a time signature, it's got to be for a reason. It's got to be for a musical reason. So it may well be that I need to compress a phrase, and by compression, I'm not talking audio here. I'm talking musical compression, where you are shortening something, or I want to expand something across the bar, apparently across the bar line. So you can do that in an additive fashion. So let's say your piece is generally in 4/4, but you want to add just like an extra couple of eighth notes to a phrase. Well, one way of doing that is to make your last bar of your phrase a bar of 5. So you have 5 voices. You have 3 bars of 4, then a bar of 5. And yes, there will be that kind of unsettling thing that goes on because of the change in meter. And that can be effective on its own. But really for me, it's about doing something for a justifiable musical reason. So that's kind of why I have meter changes. Sometimes it's because the melody itself has an unusual meter. I've written pieces before where it's alternating between 5/8 and 7/8. You know, like a bar of 5, a bar of 7, bar of 5, bar of 7. So I've done that before. And again, there's a musical justification for it. It's because the melodic phrase itself is odd. And you can't fit that into something even like 4/4. So, yeah, that's kind of when I do things like time signature changes. So there has to be like a reason for it, for me to do it, rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it because it's kind of hip to do it. I hope you see what I mean. I'm maybe not incredibly explaining myself, but yeah, that's kind of why. Wow, my nose. That's kind of why I would do that. And Bobby Booth is here as well. Awesome. We can get on with the show now that he's here. Let's see. Ronald says, in the Illinois meetup last night, Jonny was making a list of feature requests from the group. Would it be best for us to submit them as feature requests? You can do, but here's the thing. The whole point, or at least part of the point of these Studio One meetups, is that they give PreSonus customers the chance to talk to somebody from PreSonus, although not every meetup is there a PreSonus employee. Sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. But those that are hosting the meetups, what they do is they take any feature requests that are discussed in those meetups, and then they filter them back to us at PreSonus. So, there are regular meetings that take place where feature requests from the Studio One meetups are kind of gathered together into one grand list, one grand log, if you like, of feature requests. Now, just because you have suggested something at a Studio One meetup, it doesn't mean that your feature request is more likely or less likely to be added into Studio One in a future build than submitting anything to the feature request page over on answers.presonus.com. They have exactly the same probability, because what will happen is all of these will go back to PreSonus Software Limited, which is where the Studio One development team is, and they will go through and they will allocate, they'll allocate these things out to various builds. And they may or may not get added to the very next release, or it might be, a few down the line. I know that way back in 2015, just after Studio One 3.0 was released, I put in some feature requests about the project page. We haven't yet seen those added into Studio One. I'm still waiting. So I am hoping and I am anticipating that they will have been added to a build. They will be being planned for a build somewhere down the line. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that, they look at all the feature requests and they look at the ones that are the most popular with customers, and then those kind of get filtered into a log, is what I'm suggesting. So yeah, Jonny should be filtering that information back. And the PreSonus development team, software development team, will go and take care of all of that. And hopefully your feature request will make it into a build at some point. Who knows? Like I said, I've been waiting for a long time for the feature requests I put in for the project page to come to pass. But we'll see. We will see. Let's see. I'm looking for questions. Let's see what we have here. I think I'm down at the bottom. And as I see it, I think that is the last question. It certainly looks like that's the last question of the evening. Well, there we go. This could be a short show. Dwayne says, automation on the project page. That was one of my feature requests. And I know for a fact that there have been many other mastering guys that have asked for that, and it's been on the feature request list. So it's there, and we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully, we'll get an answer very soon. That's what I'm hoping for. But yes, Bob says, I had a question on A7 minor. I don't see a question. I don't see a question. I'm going to go back up and look and see if I've missed it. But I'm not seeing your question on minor chords. Rich says, as you'll be recording your own stuff, will you use a DI box for bass, or will you even U it? I'm not sure what you mean by U it, but every time I've recorded bass for my records, I have used either my fretted Fender Jazz bass, which is not in the studio at the moment. I've actually lent it to my dad for a short while. I should be getting it back off him at Christmas. But yeah, and I just plug directly into the interface most of the time. And I either use Guitar Rig for the amp sim, or I use Ampire. There are some bass amps in Ampire now, which is great. There are a couple of other bass amp models I would like them to see work on, and as I said, those are feature requests of mine that I've put in, so we'll have to see if there is an update to Ampire that has these particular bass amps modeled, which would be lovely if they have. But yeah, normally I just plug straight in and use an amp sim, because I could mic up one of my bass amps, or I could run the line out of one of my bass amps and straight into the interface. I know some people, when they plug directly into their interface, they have lots of trouble with gain, and even if they turn the input control all the way down, they still have an absolute megaton of gain. I haven't had that problem with my Fender basses, so I'm not quite sure what people are experiencing when they're doing that. But for me, going straight into the Studio 1824C, much like the keyboard, it doesn't really present that much of a problem. Seems to sound pretty good. Yes, Mike, of course you can. Let's see. Clarification, by meter change emotional impacts. I'm seeking some expected emotion impacts of compressing the phrasings. For example, way double time for snares, increasing listener sense of urgency. Yeah, double timing can certainly, changing harmonic rhythm as well as actual rhythm can increase a sense of urgency. So can kind of passing chords and those kind of things. Let's say you have chords that are going kind of like two chords per bar. If that's kind of where you're going with your song, and you want to increase the sense of urgency going into your final line, you can change that harmonic rhythm to, instead of 2 chords per bar, so 2 beats for each chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, this. So I'm changing the rhythm. And I can do this. Hang on. So that's another little device where I'm using a sequence of chords on each beat. You know, I'm going So, but that's not necessarily meter changes. That's harmonic rhythm changes. That will definitely give you a sense of urgency. But, you know, doing like a little bar of 5 can also give a little sense of apprehension as well. So, going back to our 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. You know, you can use that, you know, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so that can itself provide a little bit of extra tension by doing that. So, yeah, bar of 5 here, bar of 3 there. Those kind of things can all have different effects on different people, for sure. I don't know why I made that sound, but there we go. Rich says, not a question as such, but thanks for all the live streams. We all really enjoy them, and we appreciate the time you take, given the time of day. Merry Crimbo to you and yours. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that a whole lot. That's very kind. And Mike says copyright strike. Well, not really, because chord changes are not subject to copyright restrictions. Had I actually started singing the melody, then I would have been in trouble. But yes, well spotted. Kyle says, for whatever holiday you celebrate, may it be joyous and filled with family and friends. Absolutely. Absolutely. And just Bob with the Gaelic greeting. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Billy says, once did a gig in Memphis with Lionel. Yeah, Lionel Richie is a legend. The guy is awesome. What's really cool about Lionel is that, you know, he'll say, you know, he's a piano player, he's a vocalist, he's a songwriter, but he doesn't really understand how harmony works. At least that's what he says, but whenever he touches the piano, he shows otherwise, that he really does understand how harmony works. I think for him, he understands much more intuitively about what sounds good and how chords work on an intuitive level than he does on a kind of, hey, this is why it works and this is how it works. To him, I don't think the how and why are that important. I think it's more for him, it's just they work. So he's instinctively worked out what works and what doesn't, what sounds good and what does not sound good. But yeah, he's a great musician and he's a great songwriter. Absolutely. David says, have you done a video on the show page? Also, could they add lyrics to it? I did an overview of Studio One 5.0 and that video is on the channel. In the Studio One 5 playlist. Excuse me. And there's a good section of about 7 or 8 minutes at the end of that video where I went over the show page. It's quite hard to kind of demonstrate the show page when I'm not actually performing. I'm not actually doing a gig, but I did do a section on it, so go check that out. As for your last part, could they also add lyrics to it? That is a great feature request, and I certainly recommend that you go to answers.presonus.com, have a look and see if that has not already been posted up. Because if it has, it does not make sense to go post another one saying exactly the same thing. Because to use a political analogy, you end up splitting the vote. What you want is you want a feature request directed towards the show page, directed towards lyrics being added to the show page that everybody votes on. Rather than having like 5 or 6 requests for the same thing that a few people here, a few people there, a few people somewhere else vote on. Because the development team won't look for that. They'll just go, oh, that's not a very popular thing because there's only 20 people that have voted that up. Rather than looking and going, oh, but there's like 5 other requests for exactly the same thing that have got 20 people on them as well. So a lot of people, they just go and add a duplicate requests. Now, what the forum moderators will do, and those that are administrating answers, of which I am one, we delete duplicate posts for this reason, because all it does is clutter it up and splits the vote on particular feature requests. So if it's there, vote it up and your job is done. If it's not there, make the feature request and then campaign for votes. If it is there and you have voted it up, go promote the fact that that feature request is there and get people to vote for it. Campaign for votes. And, if it gets into a future bill, then, that's your election won. Keeping with the political analogy. Mike says, here is video I have on the show page starting at the point of video. Awesome! Mike has queued up that video for you. Go and check it out. Fantastic. Fantastisch. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys. Secret Squirrel says, thanks very much for all the learning opportunities. Wishing you, your family, friends across the pond, great joy for Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and Festivus, whichever suits. Well, in my case, it'll be Christmas and Hanukkah, because I'm ethnically Jewish, but I'm Christian. So I am the lucky guy at this time of year. I get to celebrate too, which means I get to eat lots of food for both and drink lots of drink for both. It's great. Alrighty. Where are we at? We have 12 minutes left. So hopefully somebody has some more questions. I would like that very much. Swig of tea from the Presonus mug. Product placement. Music to Motion says, come hang on Zoom for a few minutes, relax with us. Actually, unfortunately, I actually have a couple of things to do before I can get to bed. So when I'm finished here, I'm going to be going to do those things and then trying to get to bed, because I have to be up early, because I have to work for Presonus, because that's my gig, that's my day job. So, whilst for you it is 7 p.m. in the evening, if you're in the central time area, 7 p.m. in the evening, it's nice and early, it's early evening. For me, that's 1 a.m. So if I hang out with you for an hour, that's 1 a.m. till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then by the time I'm in bed, it's 3 o'clock. And then I'm up again at like 6:30, 7 o'clock to make sure my kids get ready for school. So sometimes I will make it, sometimes I won't. I hope you understand, and I hope you're not offended by that. Let's see. Mike says, they ever going to put a T plugin inside Studio One? I've been talking to Arne Kaiser, the general manager of Presonus Software, about that for about 7-8 years, and he keeps on promising it. So hopefully 1 year we'll get it. That would be awesome. Rich said, is there a place where we can get Studio One or Presonus merch other than what's on the site? Legit. Only, of course. There is a Presonus. There is a section of the Presonus website which is called Apparel, and you can get t-shirts, shirts, hoodies, and mugs, and bags, and all sorts of other cool stuff from there. But they ship from the United States. So if you're in the United States, cool. It's not going to be too bad for you. If you are in Australia, if you are in Europe, if you're in the UK, it will cost a wee bit extra. In fact, it might cost quite a bit extra, certainly with the the season that we're going through at the moment. So, yeah, that's kind of the answer to that. That's the only place at the moment that is a legitimate place where you can get PreSonus merchandise. I am hoping that in the future they will expand that out, and make more stuff available for customers to get their hands on. Let's see. MIDI control kettle with alarm. Absolutely. PreSonus branded, of course. What is a T plugin? T plugin is a plugin whereby you drop the plugin on your master fader, and every 20 minutes it triggers your kettle and boils the kettle and makes you a cup of tea and then brings it to your desk. So that's what I'm after. Almost forgot there's a YouTube host who has been trying to reach out to PreSonus about YouTube copyright strikes because people are claiming PreSonus samples as exclusive. We are aware of such things happening. They shouldn't happen because all of the samples that you have in presence, all of the samples and sounds that you have available from PreSonus Sphere are all 100% royalty free. So you should not be getting a copyright strike simply for using a sound. That would be like copyrighting the trumpet, or copyrighting the bass clarinet, or even worse, copyrighting the contrabass flute. That would really upset me if somebody copyrighted the sound of the contrabass flute. Not that I'm making light of it, obviously, but here's the thing. I'm not a lawyer, but as far as I am aware, under copyright law, only lyrics and melodies are subject to copyright ownership, so that they are regarded as intellectual property. There have been a couple of corner cases where there have been various ridiculous lawsuits whereby just sounding vaguely like another artist makes you fall prey to the copyright laws and that kind of stuff. Those are ridiculous, and I think everybody knows those are ridiculous. But generally speaking, only melody and lyrics are subject to copyright. So even a great drum fill, such as the drum fill that takes you into the chorus of Phil Collins's "In the Air Tonight," that is not copyrighted. You could take that one drum fill and make it a groove for your next massive monster dance hit, and Phil Collins cannot claim any copyright ownership of it at all, because it's not melody, it's not lyrics, it's rhythm, and you cannot copyright rhythm, just like you cannot copyright chord changes, and you cannot copyright a note. I know that there have people have been trying to do this. People have been trying to copyright that C sharp and saying I own C sharp. It's ridiculous. You can't do that. So so if people are being subject to copyright because they have used exactly the same sound as another song, if the YouTube algorithm is generating those copyright strikes, you should be able to protest those. I have actually had a couple of those happen to me, where one of these live streams, in fact, was subject to not a copyright strike, but a copyright claim, because I used a drum rhythm. In fact, that's all I used was a drum rhythm. And the automated algorithm of YouTube said, no, you can't monetize that because that sounds exactly like this. And so I basically said, no, this is the sounds of a drum set that is native to Studio One, which is exactly what it was. It was the Tom Brecklin drums set in Impact. And they dropped it. And so the claim was revoked. So if I was monetizing my channel, I could continue to monetize that video, but I'm not monetizing my channel, so it didn't really matter one way or the other. But if I was monetizing my channel, that would have mattered a great deal, because it's bloody annoying. It really is. Else Media says, thank you for all the time and information you give us each and every live stream. You are very welcome. It is. I actually really enjoy all of these Q&A sessions, which is why I keep doing them. I mean, for a while I did used to do kind of more topic-based live streams, but I actually really enjoy doing these sessions where you guys just ask me questions. Let's see. Sixwell says, totally get you. I only raise it as samples are under ownership of Presonus. And as their employee, I didn't know if you'd want to know. Yeah. All of the sounds from any of the sample libraries that you get with Persona Sphere, or that you get in any of the instruments, either Presence, Mai Tai, Sample One, although Sample One doesn't really actually have any content for it. But yeah, any of the instruments, the Persona Symphonic Orchestra, any of that stuff, those are all 100% royalty free. I think the only exception is Notion, because those sounds are the sounds of the London Symphony Orchestra, recorded at Abbey Road Studios. And I think all you have to do is just like put an acknowledgement on your recording that you've used the sounds of the London Symphony Orchestra inside of Notion or something like that. But I think that's the only exception as far as I'm aware. Just Bob says, people like Prince have copyrighted sounds specifically to specifically a certain electric drum effect. So how does that play into copyright? Like I said, I'm not a copyright lawyer. But by and largely, you cannot copyright a sound. You can copyright a melody and you can copyright words, but you cannot say that is my sound, unless that particular sound is very specifically unique in a certain way. Like a sample library, there are some sample libraries that are not royalty free. And, you know, for example, let's say I'm doing a remix of a Prince record. Or I'm doing something that contains the sample of a horn section riff from Tower of Power, from one of their records. I would have to put on my recording, I would have to put a notification that I have sampled Tower of Power, the record, the copyright information for that record, and I would have to give away a certain percentage of my royalties to them for the fact that I have used a sample on their recording, on my recording. Now, the way it should work, way it doesn't always work, but the way it should work is that composers like me who may decide to use a sample, I mean, I don't do it very often, I think I've done it once in 10 years, but if I wanted to do it, the thing that I should do before I even release my recorded work is contact the holders of the copyright of that particular riff from that particular song, you know, whoever the publishers are of Tower of Power's music, and say, hey, I want to use this little this little 2-bar riff from the chorus of this song. Would you know, can we come to an agreement whereby I can use that? So I'm asking them permission to use it. And then, you know, when I release my recorded work, I say Tower of Power horn section appears courtesy of X record label. And this particular sample from this particular song is used in this particular song on my record. I would have to do that, and then, you know, we'd have an agreed royalties that, because otherwise I would get sued for copyright, and rightly so. If I use somebody else's sounds, somebody else's work, somebody else's music, somebody else's intellectual property, without their permission, they have every right to sue the pants off me. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Dave's not here, but I've heard about his ownership of C#. Yeah, I know. And yes, nobody owns the paradiddle, as far as I'm aware. Just Bob says your show is great just the way it is. Cool. I'm glad to hear that. Steve Squirrel says, I need to wash off my plate and get to work. Wish you all a very happy holiday. Take care. And on that note, folks, thank you ever so much for a fantastic 2021. I am considering very strongly doing a New Year's special show. If you guys are interested in it, I know that for most of you, New Year's Eve, you'll be wanting to just party your butts off, and that's great. If that's what you want to do, don't come to the show if you don't want to. But I think just about every year I've done a New Year's show. So New Year's falls on Saturday this year. So January 1st is a Saturday. And then our normal Sunday Night Live would be on the 2nd. But I'm considering doing a New Year's Eve special show. It will not be a full hour-long show. It will maybe be a 30-minute show so that you guys can get back to celebrating New Year's. And then on Sunday, January 2nd, we will have the normal Sunday Night Live, and it will be a special show because it's the first show of 2022, and also we will be taking a look back over 2021, and you guys can look back at and talk about things that you have achieved musically in your studios in 2021, and then we can start forecasting, because I like to forecast sometimes, what you think is going to be the next big thing in music in 2022. And what you think is going to be the next big thing in music technology in 2022. So we will discuss that on the 2nd of January. So we've got Boxing Day on the 26th. There will be no show on Boxing Day. Just so you know. No show on Boxing Day. So Sunday 26th, there will be no Sunday Night Live. The next show for Sundays will be on January 2nd. But as I said, I'm planning on doing a New Year's Eve show like I have done pretty much every year for the last however many years we've been doing Sunday Night Live. I can't even remember now. It's about 5 years, I think. Just Bo says, you're not going to fall asleep again, are you? Oh, yeah, I did do that a couple of years ago. That's absolutely right. So, yeah, that's my plan. So if you guys are up for a New Year's Eve show, drop me a line over on Facebook if you're on Facebook, or you can email me, johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and we'll do a short little gathering for celebrating New Year's. If you guys are up for that, if you're not, that's fine. Not a problem. I don't mind either way. So until then, folks, I'm going to bid you guys a very fond farewell and massive, massive thank you to everybody for all of your company over the last year of Sunday Night Lives. Take care. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now, folks.
sad life crashes, broken by the yearn for more and more. Another spin of the wheel, roll of the dice, or ace on the turn. You beg, borrow, or steal, or trade your soul for bands to burn. In God we trust, says on the bill. From boom to bust, make it a thrill. It can steal your life, dominate your goals, make a trouble and strife. Seek another soul, this little paper deity. Let's go and flash the plastic, blow it all on hot girls and wheels. Let's do something drastic. In the morning we'll never feel. Where were you on Black Wednesday? Stood for hours outside the Northern Rock. Still hungover from Tuesday. Must we take this banker's cross? In God we trust, says on the bill. From boom to bust, make every thrill. It can steal your life, dominate your goals, make a trouble and strife. Seek another soul, this little paper days.